mute this. All right. How's the sound now, Dan? Is that any better, Dan? Well, let me know. Because I plugged everything back in, so hopefully it's working. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. This is the... If it doesn't work now, I'll just record it. So let me see if it's showing up. Do I have a fan blowing on the microphone? No, I do not. So, Dan, how is it? Much better. Okay, excellent. So, hopefully you guys can see everything. All right, Dan says I'm good to go. I apologize for that. I don't know I got this new little lapel mic. Anyway, I'm just going to keep going. All right, so we had a few questions that came in. Remember, you can always email your questions over to applications@melco.com, and we'll get them added to the list. And these are a few that we had. One of the first questions that came in this week was, what's the best format for clear now. All right, what's the best format to get my designs from DesignShop? So to do that, what I would suggest is, anything you're going to bring over from Hatch or something else into DesignShop is not going to come over with wireframes. So it's going to come over in an expanded format. So it really depends on what you want to see. All right, so if any of these formats will come over just fine. Your EXP and DST files are just expanded. They save no color information. If you want color information, what you're going to need to do is open one of these, save it off as a GIF or a HUS file, and that will save off the comments so that you have it save off the colors so you have all the information. Okay, so let's see, what else do we have? Another question that came in was, I have multiple circular patterns that were all drawn with straight points versus curved, and I want to make them all curved to smooth it out. So how do I do that? So if you go into DesignShop, so I'll go open that up. Good morning, everybody. Apologize for the issues we had up front. All right, there we go. So I've got this little circle thing, and this is what we have drawn. And what we're wanting to do is change these over into curved points. Okay, so to do that, what you're going to want to do is hold your Shift key down and click. So Shift and left click on a point is going to convert it from a straight point to a curved point. Okay, so when you do that, it'll give you these curve points. Now notice it doesn't always make it the nice circle you want. You can hold your Control key down and that will straighten out the points to make it more circular. So by holding Control when you drag a point, it's going to make it a nicer arch from the opposite points. So to convert it from a curved point to a straight point and vice versa, you're going to left click. So hold your Shift key down and left click on a point. All right, so that would be your first way. Another way you can do it is just redraw your shape. Okay, so to redraw it, what you're going to do is choose your this circle tool right here. So whether you're going to do a walk input or a curve right there, or a fill, whatever it's going to be, you're going to select the point, select the circle, and left click, hold your Shift key down to make it lock to a circle, and that will give you a perfect circle. All right, so that's another way to get a curve drawn. Now, you also have the ability to do what's called curve compensation. So if you look here, you'll see I have straight points. So it looks like I have two straight lines. So just looking at this, it looks like a point. However, I've drawn it where I want a curve, right? So if I close it, you can see the wireframe right there. So what I really want is a curve. So if you go into the properties of this, down here you have curve compensation. And what curve compensation is going to do, notice now instead of being a straight line from there to there, it's going to, which is very angular, it's going to add additional points by changing the stitch length around the curve to better approximate the curve you have. Okay, so curve compensation is going to help you match closer around the curves and get a better look for you. Okay, so here's some other examples of that. Like here, that would be without curve compensation, which is this button right here in your properties. By turning it on, it's going to take that long stitch length and shorten it up so that you can get something that looks more circular, even though stitches are straight lines from one point to another, right? So that's how you're going to get it to look like a curve, by shortening those down. All right. And the shortcut, is there a way to individually select points and properties? No, you have to select each point. So again, you can do them. So if I've got a bunch of points drawn, I can individually click points, right click, go to properties, change to curve, okay, which that's a lot of work. Faster way, which is the only shortcut there is to hold your shift key down and left click on a point. All right, so that will convert it. And if I hold shift again, it makes it straight point, curve point. That's your toggle, shift and click. Okay. All right, so there's that one. All right. How can I create interlocking letters? So we've got some font questions. Well, let me quick answer this one because it's easy. When you have a design but you need some overlap, can you save it where the overlap embroidery isn't going? Essentially, can you take something, have it overlap, and not fix the file so that the stitches underneath just make them not so? No, there's no way to do that. You've got to actually go do the work, update your file, and delete the stitches that you don't want to be there. Okay, so this one is, how do you actually do that? How do you create something that's interlocking? Okay, I don't see any questions yet. That's what I'm looking over there. Make sure everything's still running. All right, so let's close this and let's do just things. So let's do S, and I'm just doing text. Why don't we change it to something that is more interesting? That's, I don't know. Let's do that one. All right, so I've got an S, and maybe I also want to do an M. And let's make it the same font. Hey, if you haven't seen this trick, here's one way you can do. So if you want to copy properties over to something else, so what you'll do is select whatever you're trying to copy your properties. And right here, you'll see there is a copy properties to clipboard. So I select this, I click on that. When I click the next one, I can paste, and that will paste my properties over for me. Okay, so that just, rather than having to keep on modifying things, you can always do that. So let's say we wanted, I should have picked something better, but all right, let's say we want that, and I want the M to circle around the S and not, okay, why don't we make these all smaller so they're satin stitches rather than this fill. And go into properties. I want to make it look pretty first. Prettier. Let's do auto split. I like that one. Okay, there we go. So I've got something that's okay. And now what I want to do is decide, how do you want this to be layered, right? So maybe I want this to go under and then this to come over the S. All right, so how will we do that? Well, first off, we're going to be cutting up our M, right? So I'm going to select the M and right click, go to operations, convert to wireframe. All right, so now my M is in pieces, so I can now do something to it. So what I'm going to want to do is, I want this tail to go under and then over, right? So from about here, I'm going to add a point. So I clicked there, select that point. Now I have, by holding my control key, so they're both selected. And I'm going to go split element at selected points. Okay, and let's delete that walking stitch for the moment. All right, so right now we're just going to ignore the other mess that's being made. I'll change colors to make it go away. There. All right, I want this one to be underneath this guy, right? So now I just relayer it. Okay, so I've got that going underneath there. Then I want this one on top, which is okay. So what I'd want to do now is just look through here and make it come out where you want it to, right? So let's say split it here, split my elements. So it's really about looking over what you're trying to do and getting it positioned to sew right. So I've got these two. I'm going to make those. All right, so now that's going under, but now I want this part going over. So again, I'm going to split my element. So take this one, let's split it like there. Split element, and this part would be on top of the S. Okay, so that's cute and all, but now we'd really want this to sew all as one element, right? I wouldn't want one of these jump stitches and other things. So that's when you got to think about your pathing, and also whether you want to get rid of these stitches under the S. That's kind of a personal preference. But so how would you orient this to make sure it's sewing continuously and not as, a mess? Well, decide the order you want to sew in. So maybe I want to sew the, let's see, we could sew this, come down to here. Actually, I'm just going to leave it like this. So I'm going to sew that part. I'm going to then do a walk stitch from here to there. Then I'm going to do this one. It sews from there to there. Then let's go sew our S. Okay, so we'll just do a walk stitch over, make our S sew. So then the S needs to start here. And let's make the S end. Where's the S ending? Let's make the S end there, that's fine. And then we'll make this guy start near here. So all you're doing is paying attention to your starts and stops to make sure you don't have those extra trims in there. All right, so anywhere you have that propeller, that's where the next thing needs to start to avoid having a additional walk. So when you're trying to interlock things like this, I still have some cleanup work to do. See all these connectors? I don't like those. I don't know about you, but I would want to get rid of them. So those are things that you've got to still address by playing with your properties. It's either being driven by this, your auto trims not being there. So if I turn that back on, voila, some of them are gone. Okay, so when you're dealing with interlocking, it really comes down to how do you want it to sew. All right, so the order you want to sew it in, what do you want to have on top and on the bottom, and then you plan your way through it, paying attention to your starts and stops. Okay, so I still have a connector there to deal with, but you can see this is now going under, over. I eliminated the extra stitches there by deleting that little segment of stitching that we broke apart. And same thing with the S. I could do that here as well. Start deleting portions of the S that are under there if I wanted to. Okay, so interlocking is not a simple thing. It's really just thinking about how you want to do it and working through the problem. Okay, what other questions do we have? All right. Can you make a short run between words with built-in fonts, not a jump or a trim, but bury the stitches between? Same thing with letters. So yes, kind of. Yes, you can. So the short answer is yes, you can, but how you do it is a little bit interesting. So when you're just putting text in, right? So if I come over and type in whatever text I have, the connectors are those jump stitches between things. All right, so when you're dealing with those, what they're talking about is rather than just leaving a connector, a piece of thread going from one letter to the next, if you add a manual stitch between those, it kind of buries the thread into the fabric. So you don't have to worry about it, and you get a cleaner sew out because you don't see those jump stitches, right? So to put those in, you can't do that in the lettering format. So leaving this as lettering, those are connectors. It's not a wireframe, it's not something you can modify. However, if you take this and you go to Operations, Convert to Wireframe, now you have something that you can modify. All right, so if, again, looking at your starts and stops, my C ends here, my O starts where the green circle is. Well, what you can do is after the C, come over here to your manual stitch and say, okay, I want to put a manual stitch right there. And then I'm going to come over here. So now I've got 2 needle penetrations. And pay attention that you're not making those too close to one another. But that will bury that stitch right between the letters. And again, right after the O, I can come add a manual stitch right there. And again, that will bury that stitch in the fabric. All right. So you've got to add manual stitches. Now, between words, you can do manual, but manual stitches, you got to pay attention to how far apart you're going from, because each time you click, that's going to be a needle penetration. All right, so if you're going to go between words, what you really want to do is use your walk input and literally, you know, digitize your lettering elements one at a time, and then put a walk input between them, and that will go through and add the additional points. Okay, so it's, yes, you can do it. It's not the, there's no quick button to do it. You just got to work through it, add your manual stitches along there between your elements, and that will bury your stitches. Okay, let's see. What else do we have? Tips on lining things up after they've been unhooped. All right, so one of the really nice things about the software, or about the machine in general, I use it all the time, is your ability to do laser alignment. So the laser alignment, this is in the manual, so you can always go watch, and plus there's a cool little video that shows you how to use it, that are all in the manual for the software. So you can click on the little question mark and it'll bring it up, look for laser alignment, and this table's there. But basically what you have to do is set up your design so that you have points to reference from, right? So let's say you have a logo with a name over it, right? And the name is what you're going to take out and put back in. Well, you need to make sure you've got points on the original design or somewhere that you can reference to be able to line up and get the text where you want it to be. There are different ways you can do it, like if you want to justify everything to the left, center, right, flip it, all this. Personally, I use this one pretty much exclusively, laser left, laser bullseye, mainly because it's easy to remember and it's easy to understand. What you're going to do is specify 2 points on the machine by on the keypad, laser left, move to the next point, laser left, laser bullseye, and that's going to rotate and center whatever you have. Now, how do you set up your design for that? Well, let's say I'm going to, all right, so let's say I've got this thing. Let's pretend that's a pocket, all right? And I have something already here, but I want a name over here. All right, so I want to put Sam, because it's short. Let's say I want to put that lined up over here, and I already have something embroidered here. That's going to stay. Well, what you'd want to do is make sure your laser points are something you can, again, get to. If it's a pocket, that's easy. All right. Is the manual stitches only available on the latest DesignShop? No. Manual stitches are in any of them. Laser alignment is actually a machine feature. Okay, so setting up the files is not dependent on DesignShop. You can do that in any version of DesignShop. The machine is actually where you're going to go do your laser alignment from. But you got to set up your files. Do the big red Melka machines have laser alignment? Yes, I have one in my shop in the next room, and I do laser alignment all the time on it. It's fantastic. Like I said, it's my favorite feature. So setting up your file, you got to think about how you're going to do it. So if I'm going to pick my pocket points, this point and that point, and so I'm going to move my machine by using hoop and arrows to this point, however I have it hooped. So even if it's hooped crooked, who cares, right? I'm going to move to this point, and I'm going to click laser left. Then I'm going to use my hoop and arrow button, come over here, click on that point, and do laser left. So then what? Laser left, laser bullseye. It's going to rotate and center it. All right, so what you want to do, if that's where I want it positioned, kind of over here, I need to set up the file like this so that my 2 points right here are on my horizontal point on 0, and then the design is positioned relative to this line where I want it, right? So if I'm going to set it right in the middle of a pocket and I want it 1/2 inch above, well, I just make sure I have this positioned 1/2 inch above the red line, and I'm good to go. So it takes a little bit of thinking to decide how you're going to set up the file, because do I want this fill here? No, of course not. I would set up the file like this, and by choosing the 2 points that you can reference on the on your actual garment, that's what's going to help align it. So if you're scratching out something Does the laser light get damaged? Is that something you can replace, or is it something an expert tech is required? No, it doesn't get damaged. Well, you can get oil on it. You get oil on it, that's not good. It can also get dirty. So on the machine, I wish I had a picture of my machine. So on the machine, on the front of it, you've got the needle case, and there's two black covers as the needle case moves back and forth. The one, if you move all the way over the needle case, all the way to the needle one, that cover that's exposed on the right-hand side is that right-hand left black cover. If you take that off, the laser's behind there. So if you take that black cover off, you can blow out the hole on that black cover, because a lot of times it has lint in it, which kind of obfuscates the laser poking through. So that is one thing. The other thing you can do is when you're adjusting the laser, right? So if you take that left cover off and have the laser pointing down at the needle plate, you can actually put a piece of paper on the needle plate and kind of move it back and forth and adjust the screw until it points where you want it to go. Okay. Now, if you take that black cover off, as it's in the, when you go through the maintenance, it has all kinds of warnings. Anytime you take that off, make sure you put it back. Otherwise your needles fall out. So never move the needle case once you take that black cover off. But yeah, the laser's right there. If you're going to replace the laser, replace it with the entire block. The laser's in a white block. Just buy the whole assembly. It's easier. And you would also want to make sure your machine is off. Don't plug in cables into electronics with the machine on. All right, so turn off the machine. If you're not sure, make sure it's unplugged, and you'll want to do that. I don't know if it's Dan or one of the guys they put a link on how to do the alignment of the laser and how to replace it. There's a link up there for you to review. And is it possible to do laser alignment on the XT? Yes. I think the only ones that I'm not 100% sure on this. I think the older Bravos don't do it, but all the other machines do. So I believe that's true. Anyway, I know all the big reds through the EMT 16X all do laser alignment, and it's a fantastic capability, really, because you can, a lot of times I don't even bother hooping correct. Like, all right, let me take that back. I don't bother hooping straight. I hoop correct with the right stabilizers and make sure everything is positioned, but I don't care if it's straight or not because I can use laser alignment. Is there literature on the maintenance? I noticed my laser is spread out and not a point. Yes, so Jeanette, there is a link that was already posted on these comments. So check that out. That'll go through there of what you can do. But, I think we've got several videos that have been posted on Melco's page on laser alignment that we'll get links to them for you, but there's so many capabilities. If you're going to do really big hoopings, there's one we did last Christmas on doing a piece of ribbon, a continuous embroidery over and over and over. So there's a lot of good details on how to do that and videos showing examples. If you want, let me know when what other things you might want to see with laser alignment, and we can see about making a video, another one. Anyway, all right, what else do we have? Oh, there was a question on when is V11 coming out. I have no idea. I don't have insight into that. I'm as excited about it as you guys are, so I don't know. I wish I did. Let's see. Did I answer all that? Yeah. All right, so another question we had is where can you find the total stitch count for the machine? Is it in the software or in OS? So is it in DesignShop or in the Machine OS? It's in the Machine OS. So DesignShop is just digitizing, right? That's creating your files for sewing. Whereas your OS is, now let me take the files we created in DesignShop and let's sew them. Let's actually turn it into a product. So within the OS, if you click on the tools icon and you go down to maintenance, you'll get a screen. It looks different depending on which machine you have. So depending on what version of the machine, some of the details are on here will be it'll show up different. However, there are constants. You have CPU, time, Z runtime, and right here is your stitch count, your Z-axis rotations. So you'd want to divide that by 2, and there will be your total stitch count for your machine. All right, so that's within the OS. and not within DesignShop. Someone says they've seen the laser alignment used on mixed media. Yeah, I do a lot of that personally. I love it. Mixing medias between, mixing sublimation and embroidery. I think it's just fun. So you can do it with DTG, with the roll-ins. There's so much you can do by mixing the different medias, and it adds a lot of interest and value to your end products. It's awesome. Let's see. Another question we had is, how can I change the background color on the OS? All right, I sew a lot of white, and when I look at white on white, I can't see anything. So I want to be able to see it. So this is unlike DesignShop. So in DesignShop, to change your background, I'll show you that. Right here, see that little sliver? If you right-click on it, you can make your background whatever you want. So that's within DesignShop, though. Within OS, what you would want to do is come over to where you set up your color sequence, and you go into your color sequence. When you're there, you'd right-click on any of your needles. All right, so right-click on any of these, and it will bring up a color property. Then if you change this number right here to 0, then you can choose whatever color you want. So find a thread color, find a color that you like, select it. So if you want it to be black, if you want it to be gray, whatever it is, select it, hit apply OK, and then your background color within OS will be a different color other than white for you to look at. All right, so I usually just leave it alone, but that's an option for you. Okay. All right, any other questions that we have? I'm looking to see if anyone else typed stuff, because that's all I had typed in. I will try to figure out why my mic doesn't work at the start, and I have to keep on unplugging and replugging it. So I'll try to figure that out for next time. But looks like the video at least went through. So any other questions you have, type them in, email them to applications@melco.com. We'll get them answered for you. Or try to, if I don't know the answer, we'll try to get someone to answer it and email back. Other than that, what would you like to talk about? Anything? All right. Oh, how do I get oh, that's a good one. How do I get the project window back? All right. Oh, I gotta get rid of that. I don't like that. All right, so this is the project view. That's what this thing's referencing. This whole side menu is called the project view. If you close that, it goes away. All right, so if you get rid of it, how do you make it come back? You go, a lot of people come down to toolbars and go, well, darn, all my toolbars are on, now what? What it actually is right here, this project view. So if you click on that and say project view, it'll reappear for you. All right. Will the upgrade to DS11 be free? You'd have to ask your sales guy. I have no idea. I would assume it would depend on when you purchased the previous version, but I don't know what to tell you for that. Best thing I would suggest is contact your sales guy and ask them, or gal, sorry, your sales contact, and ask them and see what they have. Let's see. So that's the project view right here. If you get rid of it, view, project views, project view, then it will appear. All right. Any other questions? I don't see any typed in. Well, thank you for joining me. Again, my name is Samantha, and send any questions you might have to the applications team, and we'll get them answered on the list for next time. Someone typed in another one. Wouldn't decreasing the auto trim get rid of the connector stitch between the letters? Yeah, that's the way to do it. So if you want to get rid of the connectors between things, yes, I'll show you that. All right, so what's deciding whether there's a trim here or whether it's going to drag a piece of thread is this number right here, auto trim. So if that's larger, eventually I'm gonna make it really big. See if it'll, yeah. So see, there's one appeared, and that's because this number is large. The smaller that is, that's the shorter piece of thread that'll be allowed before it automatically forces it to a trim. So yes, by reducing this, you can get the trims to go away. But the question we had is, well, I want to leave the connectors. I just want to bury the stitch. So By burying the stitch, you can add manual stitches between the letters, and that will put a needle penetration to kind of force the thread down. So there was a question, can I talk about the upgrade to the EMT16X? What do you want to know about it? I love it. I've got it in there. The EMT16X upgrade, you can put that on any of the EMT machines, right? So the EMT16 pluses will go to an X. And it's an upgrade you can do. You replace the lower arm, a tech will put it in there for you. And it changes the trimming system out completely. So you'll go from having the hook integrated cutter to having a separate cutter. It keeps the tails nice and short. There's a lot of really nice features built into it, where your cutting blade is built into the stitch plate. I don't know, it's pretty much bulletproof. It runs beautifully. If you have specific questions, I'm not quite sure. I know the way to get the upgrade is to talk to your sales contact. So if you're thinking about it, call them, and they'd be, I'm sure, more than happy to see about getting it scheduled for you. Is there a cost to upgrading to a EMT16X? Yes. There you go. Someone just posted the link. Looks like it's actually on Shop Melco. Cool. So there's an upgrade kit up on Shop Melco for you, which will give you the entire kit necessary. I would suggest putting it in with a tech. Yeah, installation is included in the price. So when you buy that upgrade, it actually includes the installation with a tech coming out to put it in. All right. Any other questions? Oh, helps if I go back to Facebook, huh? All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me. Send your questions into applications@melco.com. Type them into the video, and I review I'll review this week's video next week when we go to do it, to see if anything was missed. Other than that, I will talk to you guys next week, and have a fantastic weekend and stay safe.